This is my first video update from Ayia Napa, Cyprus on this Saturday, midday. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a New York Times article that came out the other day claiming that the collective West is falling short in supplying Ukraine with the weapons it needs for a successful spring counteroffensive. Now, the New York Times, they are citing the Discord leaks. That is what the, the Pentagon document leaks are now being called, the Discord leaks. And they claim that according to one of these documents in the Discord leaks, that the collective West is not providing Ukraine with the military hardware that it needs in order to successfully defeat Russia on the battlefield. For example, the New York Times claims that U.S. military planners estimated that Kiev would need 253 tanks for the coming assault, but only 200 had been mustered by late February. Of those, 140 were Soviet designs, while just 60 tanks of Western manufacture would be delivered by April, the New York Times said. So these documents are from the end of February, the beginning of March. So that is the information. The numbers in these documents are from this time period. But the documents claim, military planners in the documents, they claim that Ukraine has received 140 Soviet tanks and another 60 are being manufactured. Keep in mind, this is in February. So from February until now, April, Ukraine is going to be getting another 60 tanks, which have been manufactured for Ukraine. And that leaves the Zelensky regime 53 tanks short of what the military planners claim is what is needed in order to launch a successful spring counteroffensive. 253 tanks are needed to break east, then south, all the way to Melitopol, reaching the Sea of Azov, splitting the Russian forces in two, and then eventually making a move on Crimea. 253 tanks is the magic number, according to military planners from documents leaked at the end of February. So the New York Times, in my opinion, is just basically telling the collective West to get up off their butts and to start delivering the weapons that are needed ASAP, because the Zelensky regime, they need to launch a spring counteroffensive. They need to get this attack underway, and they need 53 more tanks in order to do it. So that's what this article to me is really all about. It's just kind of a way to push collective West leaders to continue to supply Ukraine with what it needs to finally launch this spring counteroffensive. Or who knows, maybe Ukraine has already received the additional 53 tanks, and this is maybe some sort of misdirection to lead us all to believe that Ukraine is short of what they need to launch a spring counteroffensive, when in reality, maybe they've received 253 tanks and more. Who knows? This could be some sort of misdirection operation. But Stoltenberg, the NATO chief, when he was in Kiev the other day, he told Zelensky that all member states of NATO have agreed to welcome Ukraine into NATO once the Zelensky regime launches a spring counteroffensive and defeats the Russian military. Once Russia is defeated, then all member states have said Ukraine is absolutely welcome into NATO. Well, all member states except Hungary, because when Viktor Orban read this statement from Stoltenberg, and he referenced in a tweet a Politico article which says that Stoltenberg claims that Ukraine is going to enter NATO and that all member states are going to welcome Ukraine into NATO. When Orban read the Politico article, he tweeted, "What?" That was Orban's tweet, the Prime Minister of Hungary. What? Question mark, exclamation point. And look, Stoltenberg, he mumbles and bumbles and runs his mouth about all of this stuff, all of this escalation, warmonger stuff, because he's going to be leaving NATO in October, and he wants to get his promotion. He wants to get his new job, and he has to talk very very hawkish because he is expecting to be appointed to some other globalist position. And so he has to run around and say that all of NATO has agreed to let Ukraine into NATO, and all of NATO has given Ukraine $150 billion in military resources, and all of NATO is going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes, because Stoltenberg, he's interviewing for his next globalist position. So that's why he comes out and talks very hawkish and oftentimes says very dumb and stupid things. But when Stoltenberg says that all of NATO is ready to welcome Ukraine into the alliance, all it does is really harden Russia's position. Because the Russian government and the Russian military says, you see what we were talking about all this time? The plan really is to get Ukraine into NATO. That's what the Russian government says. It just kind of, it proves their point, and it hardens their stance, and it makes Russia more determined to make sure that Ukraine doesn't enter NATO, which means that Russia is going to make sure that Ukraine is defeated and demilitarized and has no chance of ever entering NATO, whatever that means. So that's what happens when Stoltenberg runs around and makes statements like this. He's not helping Ukraine. He's actually hurting Ukraine, because Russia is going to do whatever they need to do to make sure that Ukraine never enters NATO. Actually, I believe that Dimitri Peskovs, he actually responded to Stoltenberg's statement by saying that Russia will never, ever, ever allow Ukraine into NATO. They will never, ever accept it. So Stoltenberg he may be trying to better his position and trying to get his globalist promotion, but in my opinion, he's making Russia's case, and he's hurting the future of Ukraine. Actually, the Wagner chief, Mr. Prigozhin, since we're on the subject of Peskov, real quick, he said that Peskov's son was actually serving in Wagner and actually fighting in the conflict. Prigozhin said, "One person I know is Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who at one time used to be considered a complete liberal. His son lived part of his life in America. If I'm not mistaken, or in England, Peskov came to me and said, 'Take him as a regular artilleryman.' By the way, he worked out fine as a regular gunner, knee-deep in mud. SHIT on an Uragan," he added, referring to Russian BM-27 Uragan self-propelled 220 multiple rocket launcher system. So it's basically Prigozhin saying that even the most liberal of Russian government officials, which Peskov was, he had that reputation of being very West friendly, that even these guys in the Russian government, they're absolutely hardened and determined in the goals of the special military operation. They're so determined in the goals of the SMO that even their family members, in this instance, Peskov's son, he went to the front lines to fight. And according to Prigozhin, he did a good job. He was knee deep in the mud fighting. So much for the narrative of politicians sending their family members to fight in the war. Why don't you send your sons or your daughters to go fight in the war? Well, in this case, we actually have Peskov's son going to fight in the conflict. And according to Prigozhin, it was Peskov who approached Prigozhin and said, take him and have him fight for Russia. So I just thought that's an interesting side note story. Let's get back to weapons and Ukraine. And Jungle Joseph Borrell, he put out a tweet the other day, and he said over 16,000 Ukrainian soldiers already trained, over 600 million of ammunition and missiles already delivered. Work on joint procurement ongoing. EU continues to work with partners to ensure Ukraine prevails. So that's the tweet from Jungle Joseph, to make sure that Ukraine prevails. It's absolutely important for the globalists to make sure that Ukraine prevails. And there's a report from a Dutch newspaper, Telegraph, which is saying that Dutch experts secretly trained the Ukrainian army to use the air defense system, the Patriot air defense system. This is according to the Dutch newspaper Telegraph. I wonder if it's not often you see a church about to be built. This is what it looks like. But I wonder if all of the weapons and money talk that the collective West goes on and on about, and they give out the numbers and how many troops they've trained and how many tanks they've given over or how many tanks they're short of. I just wonder if all of that is misdirection. And behind the scenes, there are more troops being trained than what they're letting us on to believe, and there have been more tanks sent to Ukraine than what they're telling us, and there are more air defense systems being put in place than what they're telling us. I wonder if a lot of this stuff, a lot of these posts from Borrell and statements by Austin and Milley about all the weapons they've handed over to Ukraine, and they give exact numbers, or the New York Times saying Ukraine needs 253 tanks. I just wonder if all of this is a type of misdirection operation to try and fool us all into believing that Ukraine is running well short of what it needs to launch an offensive. But in fact, Ukrainian soldiers are being trained in big numbers, and the collective West is delivering a lot of tanks to the Ukraine military so that they can launch this offensive. Because this Dutch Telegraph article kind of got me thinking that there are a lot of Ukrainian soldiers and military personnel being trained in secret and in secret locations and in secret numbers. Just a thought. I don't know if this is true or not, but who knows? Because I'm always very curious as to why the collective West officials always give out such exact and precise numbers all the time. Is that normal in a conflict to always be giving out your exact numbers of how many weapons you have, or how many weapons you're delivering, or how many troops you're training, and where they're being trained, and in what countries, and on what systems? Is that a normal practice? Because it doesn't seem like it's something that one party in a war would be doing. But who knows? Who knows what's going on? Anyway, that's That's an article from the Netherlands. Former general, former commander of US troops in Europe, Ben Hodges, he says that the counteroffensive will begin in a few weeks and will be aimed at isolating Crimea. The armed forces of Ukraine will strike at Sevastopol and other targets on the peninsula. They talk on and on about Crimea, 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 and splitting Russian forces. It also leaves me wondering if they're not going to move towards Crimea at all. Who knows? Once again, is this something normal? You telegraph exactly where you're going to attack and where you're going to strike, and in pretty much what time frame you're going to do all of this in? Is that normal? And you get the whole collective West media writing articles about this? I wonder if the Zelensky regime would dare to actually move into Russia proper, like the Belgorod region. I wonder if the Zelensky regime and if NATO and the collective West actually push the Zelensky regime to launch some sort of an offensive, not towards Crimea and in the south, which is where I also believe they'll go towards. But I wonder if that's just a misdirection, and what they're really going to do is maybe to try and strike into Russia proper in order to kind of shock the Russian public and Russian society, and perhaps get the generals in Moscow to take out Vladimir Putin, which is what's on their brain. They think that could be the way to cause regime change in Russia, is to get some generals panicked so that they put together some sort of military coup against the Russian government. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think that's the case. I believe that they're telegraphing everything that they're doing because they're idiots with a huge ego, a huge hubris, and a huge ego, and they have the need to want to announce all this stuff. But who knows? Maybe this is some sort of elaborate misinformation operation. Possible. I guess it's possible. I'm sure we're going to find out in a couple of weeks. That's Ben Hodges. He's been wrong about everything in this conflict, so keep that in mind. Let's see, what else should we discuss here? Sanctions. A seventh sanctions package from the European Union, but not towards Russia, towards Iran. Man, the European Union intends to impose new sanctions against Iran. Some Western media have reported that the European Union may approve the seventh sanctions package against Iran on Monday. Man, Iran, you guys are slacking. People watching this video from Iran, you guys are not really doing a good job. You're only on 7 sanctions packages. Russia's at like 11. You guys need to pick up the pace a little bit, you know? Pick up the pace, man. You got to catch up to Russia. Wow. You're only at 7. Where's North Korea at? Is North Korea at like 3 or 4? 4 sanctions packages? Russia's at 11. But the EU did say that they're running out of sanctions packages for Russia, so maybe that gives Iran a chance to catch up. Who knows? They are sanctions crazy. They are sanctions addicted. Addicted to sanctions. That's the European Union. It's like they found a new toy. They've discovered sanctions, and now they just can't put that toy down. Man. How about an update on grain? How about an update on the grain situation? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, they said that the decision of Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, and Bulgaria regarding restrictions on the import of Ukrainian grain is a heavy blow to the regime of Ukraine President Zelensky. And they're right. They're absolutely right. It shattered EU solidarity, didn't it? It really did shatter the notion of EU solidarity. And EU friendship towards Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they're spot on there, but not only did Russia issue a statement with regards to the food fight between Eastern Europe, EU member states, and Ukraine, but the Russians took it one step further and they announced free fertilizer to Africa. Free fertilizer to Africa. Moscow is preparing 2 batches of fertilizers to be shipped to Kenya and Nigeria free of charge, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Vershinin has revealed. The announcement comes amid uncertainty over the prospects for an extension of the Black Sea grain deal. So far, 1 shipment of Russian fertilizers of 20,000 tons has been transported to Malawi, and it took 6 months. More deliveries of fertilizers to Kenya and Nigeria are being prepared, but they have not yet been implemented, Vershinin told Russia 24 TV on Friday. So, as Ukraine is, or was, dumping cheap, chemically enhanced grain and food products to Eastern Europe, Russia is delivering free fertilizer to Africa. How about we also do an update on the Orthodox religious situation in Ukraine? And there was an Austrian blogger who actually went to the churches and monasteries in Ukraine to see what's going on with the situation of the arrests, the evictions, the persecution of Orthodox monks in Ukraine by the Zelensky regime. And the Austrian blogger, he said that he was shocked at what he saw. He said he was shocked at the crackdown of the churches. And I've seen photos, videos actually, of Ukraine Orthodox believers actually receiving mass through the cages, the iron cages of the church, because the monks and priests, they've been locked up. They've been locked into various rooms and various areas of the churches by the Zelensky goons and the Zelensky authorities. They're actually imprisoning the monks inside of their own monasteries. That is when they're not just grabbing them and putting them in prison. What a sad situation in Ukraine as the Zelensky regime goes after the canonical, recognized, real Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the Ukraine Orthodox Church, and they try to push and promote a heretical, bogus, fictitious Orthodox Church in Ukraine, which was put together by the CIA, Mike Pompeo, and an Orthodox patriarch who I prefer not to mention. And you know, today it's the church in Ukraine, the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, that the collective West is going after. Tomorrow it will be the churches of Greece and Romania and Cyprus and Bulgaria. That's the way this goes. Anyway, Austrian blogger, he probably didn't believe that the persecution of these monks was real, and he probably thought it was Putin propaganda. That's my hunch. Is he probably thought, this is more Kremlin disinformation. So at least let me go to Kiev and see for myself what's going on. And he did, and he was shocked at what he saw. Shocked at what he saw. So that's an update with that story. We have an update with the BRICS meeting in South Africa. From what I understand, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accepted the invitation to attend the 15th BRICS summit in Durban in August. Now, that could mean that Putin has accepted to attend the BRICS summit via video, but it could also mean that the Russian president will travel to South Africa to attend the 15th BRICS summit. Now, I bring this up because you have the ICC, the Hague arrest warrant for Putin, of which South Africa is part of the ICC. They have signed up to the Rome Statute. But South Africa has come out and they have said, they've been very, very clear to say that they will in no way enforce the ICC arrest warrant and they will not touch Russian President Vladimir Putin. But what scares me, what worries me, is that the Russian president's plane could come under some sort of attack. I don't know. I think the chances of that are very, very, very low, because that would that would definitely be seen as some sort of World War III type of action, I imagine. Something like that would just trigger full on World War III. But you never know with these nutcases. You know, these neocon crazies, they just might do something to Putin's plane, try to bring it down for a landing, or try to do something as it's traveling to South Africa. From Moscow to South Africa is a long trip. And, you know, even though I think the chances would be very low, it still is a risk. Even though it's a low risk, it still is a risk. We'll wait and see what this acceptance of the invitation means. It could just mean that Putin will decide to play it safe and he'll say, you know what, let's not do anything and go on any long trips, and I'll just attend the conference via video. Who knows? We'll see. You know, another thing it could mean, this acceptance to go to the BRICS conference by August, end of summer. It could also perhaps signal that let's walk towards the beach. It could signal that Putin and Russia believe that they can wind down this conflict in Ukraine by August, and, you know, put all this nonsense behind them. Maybe they're saying by August we'll have wrapped everything up and we can start to bring things back to normal to a certain extent. That could be what this is signaling. The Russian authorities, they've actually issued an arrest warrant, since we're on the subject of arrest warrants, for what's the guy's name? For the military intelligence chief of Ukraine, Mr. Bogdanov. The Russian prosecutor's office issued an arrest warrant in absentia for the head of the military intelligence service of Ukraine, Bogdanov, on charges that he organized terrorist attacks in Russia. So, Mr. Bogdanov, if I were you, I would be making my way to Miami to stay at one of Zelensky's 20 or 30 homes in Miami, because I have a feeling that if you stick around Ukraine, I just have a feeling that the Russians are going to, they're going to get you. They are going to get you. That's just my take on it. Let's do a couple of more stories and then we'll get into our clown world. And there's the story of Hungary and Serbia that are going to start construction of an oil pipeline through which Russian oil would be supplied to Serbian consumers through Hungary. Hungarian Foreign Minister Szijjártó said that the agreement could be signed as early as June. For the first time, such plans were discussed last autumn. The construction of a new pipeline connecting the GTS of Serbia and Hungary will make it possible to supply Russian energy resources bypassing the route blocked by Croatia. What does this tell us? What does this tell us? An interesting move by Hungary and Serbia. A very interesting move. Does the leadership of Hungary and Serbia, do they know something that we don't know? Do they sense that Russia's going to be in some sort of favorable position by June or July, and that's why they're moving forward with this pipeline so that they can get Russian oil bypassing Croatia? Because if they believed that Russia was losing or going to lose, then that would mean that they wouldn't go through with this type of endeavor to create a pipeline and to get Russian oil via that pipeline. That's going to really, really anger Ursula von der Crazy. Really going to anger her. But maybe they know something that we don't know. Maybe they have a sense that Russia is going to be able to, I don't know, maybe reach a certain border close to Hungary where it's going to free up Hungary and Serbia with regards to their energy needs. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but a very interesting move from Hungary and from Serbia. A very interesting move that is going to really upset von der Crazy. And oh boy, is this going to turbocharge the Viktor Orban regime change operation that the United States has put in place. This is going to turbocharge it. Anyway, there's that bit of news as well. Let's do a couple of clown worlds and wrap this video up. And we are going to talk about Twitter in this clown world again. I think I've done 3 clown worlds in a row talking about Twitter. But before we get to Twitter, how about Reuters doing an interview puff piece on the Ukraine military? And they did this whole documentary expose on the Ukraine military, and they interviewed a Ukrainian soldier with the call sign, and get this, Adolf. His call sign was Adolf. And Reuters ran a report and a mini documentary, an expose on the Ukraine military to be favorable to the Ukraine military. And they actually decided to go with an interview of a Ukrainian soldier with the call sign Adolf. They didn't change the call sign in editing or in post-production. They didn't decide to go with maybe a different soldier. They didn't decide to perhaps, I don't know, tell this soldier to just make up a new call sign instead of Adolf. Say that your call sign is George or Jim or Alex or I don't know, Mickey Mouse, whatever. They decided to just stick with Adolf. Oh man, they're not even hiding it anymore, are they? They're not even hiding it. Incredible. It really is incredible. Oh boy. Let's talk about Twitter. So Charlie Sheen is upset that he had his blue check mark removed. He said, "Dear Elon Musk, I'm sorry your fancy rocket exploded in spectacular fashion. I'm certain you'll build an even bigger and more explodey one. Now may I please have my blue check back? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you in advance. Sincerely, C. Sheen." And Elon Musk replied to Charlie Sheen by saying, "I feel your pain. I feel your pain, bro." Oh, man. Elon Musk, man. I'm telling you, he's having fun with this. There's no doubt about it. He's having fun with this. I feel your pain, Charlie Harper from 2.5 Men. I feel your pain. And you know, Bette Midler, she also put out a tweet complaining about her blue check mark being disappeared. Let me get it here. She said, Elon took my blue check away. I'm unverified. After all these years and thousands of tweets and free content, this worm has the nerve to decertify me. And you know, I'm reading Bette Midler's tweet here because I think it pretty much sums up why they're so upset. You know, Charlie Sheen and Bette Midler, they obviously could pay $7 or $10 or $15 or $20 a month, whatever it is for the blue check mark, $100 a month. For them, it's not a big deal. They obviously could pay that money and they could keep their blue check mark or get their blue check mark back. But they don't want to do it. They refuse to do it because, as Bette Midler said, it's not about the blue check mark. It's about the status. It's about the status. I'm better than you. I'm better than all of these other people that don't have the blue check mark. Twitter has decided that I'm an elite. I'm a blue check mark elite. And that's what this is really all about. And that's why they're upset. They could get that blue check mark back if they paid for it, but they know that anyone that wants to pay for it can get a blue check mark. And that takes away its status for them. In their eyes, it takes away its status because they were chosen. They were chosen to be the blue checkers. Is that what they would call them? The blue checkers? They were the chosen ones. And Elon Musk, as Bette Midler said, he has taken it away. after thousands of tweets and free content. That's why Bette Midler's so upset. I gave you all of this free content. How dare you do this to me? These guys, these Hollywood bozos. Oh boy. Even Charlie Sheen has been exposed. As a bozo, as a clown. Even Charlie Sheen. Charlie Harper. Oh man. All right, so I think that's it for this video from Ayia Napa. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Rockfin, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram. And go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care from Ayia Napa, Cyprus.